Good morning, good afternoon to everybody.
Hi, I'm Candela Leiron, and I'm right now in Valencia, in Spain, and I'm Team A.
I am Guillermo Urbe.
I'm Adrián.
Hello, Marcos here. My name is Marcos Andreu, and I am here in Valencia, and I'm part of Team B.
This is Saul. I'm from Valencia too, and I'm looking forward to have a really fruitful debate.
Hello, I'm Gloria. I'm from Valencia too, and I'm from Team B.
My name is Andrea. I'm from Strongsville, Ohio, and I'm on Team C.
Also on Team C, my name is Jacob, and I'm from Ohio as well.
Hi, my name is Hannah, and I'm also on Team C, and I'm currently in Montreal, in Canada.
Hi, I'm Henry. I'm from Minnesota, US, and I'm on Team D.
Hi everyone, my name's David. I'm from New Jersey, and I'm also on Team D.
Hi everyone, my name's Amina. I'm from North Carolina, and I'm also on Team D.
Hi, I'm Carolyn. Just want to thank Professor Asensio and Professor Arafat for inviting me to come back. I did this last year. I'm from Glastonbury, Connecticut.
Hello, I'm Maria Estiva from the UCB, and thank you all of you.
Hi everyone, I'm Bayan. I'm a rising sophomore at Yale, and I'm right now in Connecticut, USA.
Hello, my name is Alberto Arafat. I'm a general teacher in Catholic University of Valencia. I teach public international law and European Union law. I'm proud to stay here. I'm happy to see you all so motivated, and I hope to see a very, very good show. Good luck to all.
Hello everyone, my name is Rosa Curras, and I am a teacher at the Universidad Católica de Valencia as well, and I am in Valencia. Good luck everyone. I'm very happy to be back here again. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Emily Mayo. I work with the Yale International Relations Association, and we're so excited to be working to put on this event. Excitingly, I am a rising junior in Yale College, and I'll be studying environmental engineering.
Everyone, good afternoon. Jose Ramon Canedo here from Bilbao, Spain too. I'm just there to learn from you all.
I'm Luna, and I teach at Yale. I'm a colleague of Pilar Asensio, who generously invited me to learn about what the debates are, how engaged students are on both sides of the Atlantic.
Thank you guys again, everyone so much. Thank you so much for coming. Today is really exciting. Obviously, it would have been great if we could have done this in person as originally planned. That being said, it's not possible. It's going to be a little bit more difficult on the virtual format. We're all coming from different times. I'm here in New Jersey, and it's really exciting to join each other from all over the world on this platform. That being said, if there are any glitches, if someone's speaking and then they tune out, we're going to be accounting for that in time, so no worries if that happens. I'm going to launch into explaining the rules for today, and then we're going to go into breakout rooms so that teams can discuss and also prepare for what we're going into. So yes. Very excitingly, each debate is going to be, each team basically will go into one round as the affirmative, agreeing with the statement that the World Health Organization did have appropriate actions in response to the coronavirus pandemic, and then we'll debate once in opposition to that statement. So it really is about trying to adopt different opinions and fight for different sides, and it should be a great learning experience. And so for each round, this is actually in the PDF that was sent out. So if anyone wants to reference this, that's what I'm reading from. But each round will start with the affirmative position, starting with an introduction to the position for 2 minutes. And then the opposition position will have an introduction for 2 minutes. Then after that, there will be a rebuttal. First from the affirmative position. Affirmative always goes first. And that will start with 2 minutes that is uninterrupted. And then after that, it'll be 3 minutes where the opponents can interject. This is a little bit difficult because usually in a non-virtual format, it's a lot easier to interject, to ask questions when you're face-to-face. I understand that it might be difficult. We do encourage whoever is on the other team that it would be interjecting at this time to just go ahead and speak. But if you're uncomfortable doing that, I'm gonna have my gallery view on. And so if you would rather raise your hand function, I will say team blank, speaker blank is going to interject now, and then you can start, just to make it a little bit easier in this format. Other than that, Then the opposition will do their rebuttal, which is, again, 2 minutes without being interrupted, and then 3 minutes where there's kind of a question and answer period. And then after that, first the affirmative and then the opposing will do a conclusion for 2 minutes by team. So it's broken down into three parts, and it should be a really interesting experience. Are there any questions about that format? I have the breakout room set up. So what we'll be doing now is we'll be going into a 10-minute breakout room in which you can kind of discuss and break down who is going to be speaker 1, who is going to be speaker 2, and who is going to be speaker 3. I would say that you want to keep that consistent between your 2 rounds. If you want to, if speaker 2 wants to be giving the introduction, that's fine. As long as when you go into the breakout room, I ask that you rename yourself, and you do that by going to the top of your window on Zoom. You press the 3 dots, and then you can press rename. I'm doing it right now, and I'll show you an example. I'm going to say that I'm team A, and then I'll say S1 for speaker 1, and then I'll put my name. So you guys can see that now. Yeah. And so you won't be able to see your whole name on the screen after you do that because it is a bit longer, but I think it'll be really helpful because then our jurors will know who you are when you're speaking. Once 10 minutes pass, we'll gather again and we'll start with round 1. And round 1 is going to be team A taking the affirmative against team C taking the opposition. So just a quick thing before we begin. I am going to give 1 tap of this loud sound, which is a gavel, but when you have 15 seconds remaining, and then when your time is up, I'm gonna bang it a few times. But I know everyone will hesitate when they hear the first. Just know that you still have a little bit of time left. It's just a signal to start closing up. Yeah, okay. To make these things easier for the jurors, I'm going to ask that during the debate, you turn off your camera if you're not on the teams debating. Just because it'll be easier for them to keep track of all of the participants. I'm going to keep my camera on just because I am moderating, and then I encourage the jurors to also keep their cameras on, but that should help things be a little bit easier. Can I please welcome the introductory speaker from Team A?
Good morning, everyone. Team A, formed by Candela, Guillermo, and me, we want, first of all, to appreciate the opportunity to participate in the global governance debate. This time, we're going to defend the position in favor of the measures taken by the World Health Organization in response to the COVID-19 of the United Nations, founded in 1948, whose objective is to achieve for all people the highest degree of health, defined in its constitution as a state of complete physical, mental, and social wellness. World Health Organization pays particular attention to combating the most important health problems, particularly in developing countries and in crisis context. Universal health coverage is whose priority in the field of health system, who works with policymakers, global health partners, civil societies, academic institutions, and the private sector to help countries develop and implement consistent national health plans and monitor them. In addition, it helps countries ensure that the citizens have integrated person-centered health service, equitable and affordable to facilitate access to effective and secure health technologies. In this way, WHO is working closely with global experts, governments, and partners to rapidly expand scientific knowledge on this new virus, track its spread and virulence, and advise countries and individuals on measures to protect health and prevent the spread of the outbreak.
Thank you so much, Speaker 1. So now we're going to move on to the introduction from Team C.
Awesome. Thank you to the panel of judges, organizers, audience, and the affirmative team for today's friendly spirit of competition. We on Team C argue that the World Health Organization did not take appropriate measures in response to the COVID-19 global pandemic. The World Health Organization did not fund an appropriate response to the pandemic and cannot bind or sanction member states to comply with its recommendations and requests. The organization's slow approach to decision-making and China-centric focus and over-reliance in early days led to many unnecessary deaths and worldwide contamination, had recommended travel restrictions, and issued a public health emergency of international concern during its first emergency committee meeting as well as called China out for refusing to allow World Health Organization observers to monitor and report on Hubei province. Early on, the virus trajectory would have been contained. They failed to recognize the importance of border closures and mask wearing until individual independent researchers discovered the effectiveness, and as such, they failed as an international system to provide health guidance, which is part of their mission. The World Health Organization also failed to take serious preliminary action to combat the pandemic and the infodemic that arose, leading to inequitable consequences for the least developed countries worldwide, who do not have the infrastructure, expertise, or research to fight the pandemic and rely heavily on the international organization.
Thank you so much, Team C. Okay, we will now recognize the rebuttal from Team A.
So to the question, were the actions taken by the WHO in response to the COVID-19 pandemic correct? We say yes. We think that the World Health Organization has acted correctly according to its functions and their duties. To ask and to answer the question if the decisions made during this pandemic were correct, we need to know what the organization can and cannot do, because we cannot expect an organization to force or to make sure that their recommendations are being taken or made by the state parties if that's not in their powers. The World Health Organization, the only thing it can do is recommend, is give technical guidance, is give advice and funds to those state members. So we cannot expect for the World Health Organization to implement policies regarding health on state members, because that's not the power that it was given by those state members who are forming the World Health Organization. Another matter, we think that the World Health Organization has acted accordingly to their duties, one of them being providing leadership during matters of critical to health. We believe the WHO has shown leadership because since the moment they were aware of the situation in Wuhan, they took decisions and they tried to communicate as much as they could with the Wuhan Municipal Health Commission. In fact, on January 1st, incident management team was sent, putting the whole organization on emergency footing to deal with the outbreak. One of others World Health Organization duties is to cooperate, is to say, also cooperation from moment one. We know China might have not been the greatest ally during this pandemic, but the World Health Organization and their administrative has tried to work as best as they could with them, showing and also realizing the progress that China has made communicating and giving information about their health crisis. We also believe we
have an interjection from Team C Speaker 1.
So you were saying that the World Health Organization acts within its powers given by the laws. However, these powers are taken from the regulations of the international health that were created in 2005. And the creation of this actually gave them the power to declare a public health emergency of international concern, which is what was the big discussion at the beginning of this pandemic. So since the regulations are created in 2005, shouldn't there, this seems very outdated, and if power was given to declare a public health emergency of international concern during that, and during the emergency meetings that were held in January to determine whether or not this was a pandemic, the specific committees themselves decided to act within. They were told to try to find a solution within the regulations from 2005 and not adjust them, or so that itself is concerning, and says that they should revise this regulation. So how do you expect the organization to be taking appropriate measures on outdated regulations?
Thank you for that question. I don't think my team would disagree with the fact that maybe the World Health Organization, has, as you may say, outdated regulations, but it also works from experience. And if those regulations are made by the state members and the state parties and the people revolving the WHO. So I don't think we can say that the decisions made were incorrect. That doesn't make the decisions incorrect. That makes, maybe the WHO, we should question, like, oh, should we give them more power? I think that's what it shows, that if we haven't changed and we haven't updated things, we might need to give the WHO more power, and we need to rethink the whole World Health Organization. But that doesn't have to do with the decisions taken, because, as I said, they took the decisions that they could with the things that they sense.
We have an interjection from Team C speaker 2.
So you're claiming that the WHO took decisions based on the powers that they have. However, they definitely could have done more, and they have done more in the past. What they failed to do is that they failed to warn the world about the virus in time, and they relied on an unreliable ally, namely China, who had ulterior motives when it came to concealing the virus and the severity of it when they had information about this. So specifically on January 14th, the WHO tweeted that it was not confirmed that the virus could be spread through human-to-human transmission, when there were records of information being communicated by the Chinese president that stated that human-to-human transmission was possible. So even if this was not directly the WHO's fault because of lack of transparency between them and their partner, they did not call China out when they did realize that China was hiding information, which led to an unnecessary and rapid spread of the virus, when in previous pandemics, the WHO General Director has called out China and other countries who were being unclear and not transparent.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, that was a situation, and we are aware that the WHO decisions and how its relationship with China has been questioned by the media and a lot of people regarding this pandemic. But from our part, we believe that it also, working alongside with China and seeing that they also have improved their communication skills regarding, as I said, the numbers and health matters. I think in past pandemics they weren't as open as they've been right now. Also, the World Health Organization has worked alongside experts. I think the emergency committee team wasn't really sure regarding I don't think it was, of course, a mistake not saying that based on the experience that we had with other respiratory transmission virus, not to realize that this
speaker. Sorry, just wanted to let you know. Please wrap up. I'm sorry, we don't have any more time for any more.
Okay, so that have, of course, been a mistake. And I think the World Health Organization realized that they should have called out China before. But we believe that because of the expert, their main focus is cooperation with our state members. That's what they promote.
Thank you, Team A. Okay, we will now hear the rebuttal from Team C.
Thank you for having us. So we believe that the WHO did not act appropriately in containing the pandemic. Specifically, I believe that Speaker 1 from Team A argued that one of the WHO's missions is to combat the most important health problems in the world, especially in difficult or critical contexts and in developing countries. However, we argue that the WHO failed developing countries and even the most vulnerable populations of developed countries. Surely countries such as the US that have large GDPs, medical expertise, should be held accountable for their decisions in regards to the virus. However, this is a global pandemic, and the majority of the world population does not live in these kinds of situations. Countries do not have the medical expertise or resources and should not be blamed for the failure of the international community that led to many deaths in these contexts. So the WHO failed to take action and failed to protect these sectors of society. You also mentioned one of the goals of the WHO is to ensure that there is a rapid expansion of scientific knowledge on the virus. However, we argue that the WHO had an extremely low response, and they actually advised against travel restrictions and against mask wearing until independent researchers discovered on their own that these were effective measures to prevent transmission. They also, during the first and the second emergency committee meeting held by the WHO, but there was an exponential growth of cases between these two meetings held in January, around 7 or 8 days apart, from 500 confirmed cases to 7,000 confirmed cases. And they also did not declare a global pandemic on time, did not take action on time between these first two meetings, which led to detrimental effects in terms of lives lost and lack of containment.
We have an interjection from Team A Speaker 2.
Thank you. You said just right now about the whole thing of the experts and the committees not taking actions before. Maybe that is because of the fact that they had to take in consensus. And is it not better to have a more formed decision? Maybe if it took a week, because during January, there was a week where the emergency committee decided not to declare just yet that it was a health crisis, just wait for a week, so there was a consensus. Do you think that it's not better that a group of experts can finally come together and make a consensus and consensus decision regarding such an important thing? Thank you.
It's obviously important to come to some kind of informed and educated consensus in anything, especially a pandemic. However, one example is the 2020 to 2021 budget proposal of the World Health Organization, and it says that universal health coverage remains at the center of WHO's priorities. But as we have discussed, they're guided by participating countries. And this funding imbalance and priority disconnect, in Team 3's opinion, has created a lopsided agenda in informing any decision. And this is important to consider in not just respecting national sovereignty, but also, the fact that it is a group of experts, and experts should be able to respond faster and more appropriately to something of this scale that takes many lives.
In addition, not only did they fail to, you mentioned that they should have a consensus. Not only did they fail to provide information as quickly as it was available before reaching, let's say, a full consensus.
We have an introduction from Team A Speaker 3.
It's a question from a sentence Speaker 2 from Team C said some minutes before. I understood that you declared that the World Health Organization is the direct responsible for the number of deaths in the world and in some countries, but obviously it cannot be judged on the results of bad decisions of governments in which every country has the coronavirus spread, no? So which could be your opinion in order to declare responsible to the World Health Organization for all the deaths around the world?
Thank you for that. I agree that certain countries should be held responsible for the actions that they had in their power and the missteps that they took. However, there are many countries, majority of countries, that do not have the power to shut down parts of their economy, for instance, proactively in order to prevent deaths, because a lot of people, there's a battle between lives and livelihoods, as we've seen. There's an economic crisis now, and a lot of countries do not have the economic flexibility to make these kinds of decisions. I will also say that the WHO failed to fight the infodemic that resulted in later stages of the pandemic. There is widespread misinformation across developing and developed countries, and a lot of people rely on information from global leaders apart from the WHO, which is wrong. And as soon as information is confirmed and a consensus is reached, which is what I was going to say in response to Speaker 2 from Team A, they should have done more to be more transparent, act as a mythbuster of sorts, and make sure that information is widely available.
In addition, when the World Health Organization donated kits for fighting the coronavirus. They donated around 1.5 million total. However, along the trajectory of the pandemic, there are over 9 million infected individuals, which leads to an inadequacy of the materials that the World Health Organization provided to combat the pandemic. And as public health is one of their top concerns, and maintaining this health, that is seen as a failure on their part as well.
Thank you, Team C. Okay, we will now launch into the conclusion from Team A. You may begin.
Thank you very much. So in conclusion, we state that what we've said, we believe that the World Health Organization has acted correctly during this pandemic according to their duties, to their functions, and to their capacities. They did what they were asked to do, and they did with the much expertise that they have. And also, I want to end this conclusion asking, maybe leaving a question in the air, saying that if it's not the World Health Organization who should be the international or the one who can help, can lead during this pandemic, then who? Is there any other institution capable of doing so? Is there other organization capable with members, expertise, technicians, and funds to do the way that it was to handle a situation like this? And if there is, I would like to know, because it's impossible.
Thank you, Team A. And we will now recognize our conclusion from Team C.
Thank you. Team C would like to say that the World Health Organization has not just responded inadequately to the coronavirus pandemic, it has facilitated the pandemic's spread by inaction, and where action has occurred, slow and ineffective action. As my team has iterated, the organization and their response were never set up to be appropriate. The World Health Organization is fickle and lacks support, but they're also made up of experts, right? The World Health Organization, their second largest donor is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, an American private organization. And Britain, the World Health Organization's third top donor, has also recently indicated that it may reduce funding unless the World Health Organization adopts more stringent reforms. This is all to say that they were facing a grim reality when the pandemic set in, and the current agency budget is already $300 million short of full financing. They were ill-equipped to respond appropriately and failed to. Team 2 stated earlier that the World Health Organization showed leadership. Today, let's all think about how we believe their failure to flag the looming threat of coronavirus as it spread out of Wuhan signifies leadership on their part. What leadership have they shown during the pandemic? Their actions, in Team 3's opinion, have led to what we're seeing today. Many deaths that could have been prevented and a public health crisis. Team 2 said that the World Health Organization must respect national sovereignty. Absolutely, but it's also a group of experts. They should be held accountable, and today we hope you will stand with us as a global citizen in recognizing their lack of effective action. Thank you.
Thank you, Team C. And with that, our first round of debate has finished. Thank you so much, Team A and Team C. You set an incredible example. Okay, we're now going to launch into another breakout room so that jurors can finish their comments. I encourage both Team A and Team C to congratulate themselves for a great first round, and also start preparing your opposing, if you were affirmative, start preparing your opposing statements, and if you're opposing, start preparing your affirmative statements. We will reconvene soon, and then we will have Team B on the affirmative versus Team D. We can get started. Again, this will be Team B on the affirmative versus Team D on the opposition. We will now get started with the introduction from Team B. You may begin.
Good morning, good afternoon, fellow delegates and jurors. My name is Saul, and along with Gloria and Marcos, we're here to defend something really simple: health. During the pandemic, the WHO has done a great deal to help countries seek the main objective, which is to protect the health of all individuals. Our position is clear. The WHO didn't waste any time to react. They have reacted quickly, and they have managed all the fronts that were opened up during the pandemic in both the scientific and social fields, all without forgetting about the fight against any kind of discrimination. Since January, thousands of documents have been uploaded by the WHO to provide guidance on how to deal with this virus. Part of these documents, indeed, are designed to help countries review and strengthen their ability to detect, assess, and respond to public health events. However, the WHO also cares about people individually, each and every one of us, citizens of various nations. For this reason, the WHO has not only maintained its Health protection programs prior to the pandemic, such as the Ebola one, but they have also prepared new campaigns on social media aimed at citizens threatened by COVID-19 with the objective of preventing the spread of this virus and helping maintain a healthy lifestyle at home. While the use of hashtags such as I stay at home or healthy at home. All in all, the WHO has done a great job, has kept us informed, has mobilized scientists, has coordinated data and research, has collected the best evidence, and has put forward really clear guidance. The big question here is whether we've given it enough authority to act the way some people want it to act. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Team B. And we will now recognize Team D for their introduction.
Thank you so much, guests, jurors, and fellow debaters. My name is Henry, and I'll be speaking first for Team D. Our case rests on two key points regarding the ineffectiveness of the WHO in coordinating response to the COVID pandemic. The first of these points is over-reliance on Chinese data and sources. The second is the failure to secure effective international buy-in to manage a global crisis. So talking about this first point, the WHO already knew going into this crisis that they could not necessarily trust the PRC's data that they were providing, that the PRC had incentives to misrepresent the number of cases and the nature of the disease. During the SARS epidemic, the WHO had documents stating that they should take Chinese information with a grain of salt, with a degree of skepticism, but this was not adhered to during COVID. There was a staggering delay during the initial stages of the outbreak, in which the WHO, first of all, did not admit that human-to-human transmission was a potential issue, and then furthermore a delay in them really pressing for a strong international action against the potential pandemic. So by some accounts, in the 20 days that it took the WHO to determine that there was human-to-human contact occurring and to announce a public health emergency, the number of cases of COVID increased by as much as 300 times. That's really a staggering amount, and it gives lie to the reluctance of the WHO to take forceful action in the initial stages, well and beyond the degree of healthy skepticism that they should have been exercising. Now, this brings me to my next point regarding the ineffectiveness of the WHO to secure global buy-in. The WHO, in between declaring a potential public health crisis, and then which happened in late January, and then in early February, flip-flopped several times regarding the necessity of actions such as travel restrictions, and only recently endorsed mask wearing as an effective way to curb COVID spread. So
finish up your statement, speaker one, sorry.
Yeah. So for an organization that relies upon creating international consensus, this flip-flopping absolutely undermines the WHO's legitimacy and ability to marshal international support.
Thank you, Team D. We will now hear a rebuttal from Team B. You may begin.
We are backing our defense on several arguments, including knowledge is power, the WHO as a great coordinator, and a better health for everyone, everywhere. Knowledge is power. We cannot omit the great work carried out by the WHO as an information centralizer. Count of deaths, contagion, and cures, the early publication of the means of the virus transmissions, and the measures of protection. The WHO has brought together the world's top health experts to produce international reference materials and to make recommendations. Moreover, if we turn our attention into the fourth GTTs, quality education, UNESCO has launched in the March of 2020 the COVID-19 Global Education Coalition. This coalition aims to seek equitable solutions and universal access and ensure coordinated actions and responses to avoid overlapping efforts. And that is exactly what WHO is reaching when coordinates scientists all over the world to find a vaccine accessible for everyone. The WHO is a great coordinator. International community, governments, and citizens. The WHO has been successful in handling these three levels at the same time, being close to us, citizens, and creating different protocols for the states through the use of social networks and focusing on specific health topics that are very useful to us. Do we know how to treat risk groups? Yes, because the WHO has taught us. Do we know how to put on a mask? Yes, because the WHO has taught us. And do we know how to wash our hands? Yes, the WHO has indeed taught us. A better health for everyone,
everywhere. All individuals have human rights. In moments of global crisis, the only way to guarantee their respect is through their protection with global entities. In this case, for the protection of the health, the WHO. This organization is the only institution capable of avoiding inequality cleavage.
Team D, now interject. You can continue though.
The WHO does not only work at the office, it also plays a great role on the ground. For decades, WHO staff have worked alongside governments and health professionals directly with people. For example, the expanded program of immunization.
An interjection from speaker 3 after you finish this statement. I guess we can hear from speaker 3. Sorry, it's a little difficult with virtual.
So you talked about how the World Health Organization is the reason that's like taught us how we should all wear masks. So what do you say about the fact that it wasn't until the first week of June that the World Health Organization finally said that maybe we should start wearing masks as a way to contain the coronavirus, and for months on end had been saying we don't need to wear masks, it's not going to help anything?
If I may, I would like to ask on behalf of my team. So speaker 3, you said that there was a contradiction of using masks and any other healthy protection ways. The WHO has explained. Well, I have to say that the WHO probably said that in a pragmatic way, because there was a major deficit of medical supplies worldwide as countries seized all these supplies and even counter offered sometimes. So that was beyond WHO power of control, since countries are sovereign and they can do this. But I have to say that this is pragmatic, and I think we can pardon WHO on that matter.
We have an interjection from speaker 2.
Hi, so I think the idea of recognizing that there's a global shortage of masks and medical supplies, that the World Health Organization puts out a statement that you don't actually need to be wearing a mask, just encourages that shortage to continue. And instead, they should have encouraged people to wear masks and therefore encourage the production of masks as well, something that they failed to do. And I think the fact that we should be pardoning the World Health Organization for their so-called pragmatic actions clearly indicates that they haven't been doing what they were supposed to do.
Well, even though we defend WHO, we'll have to agree with you on that matter. I guess this organization has failed on that.
So you can continue with your rebuttal, speaker 2, if you still had more that you'd like to say.
Yes, sorry. As they declare, the WHO is working with 194 member states across the 6 regions and from more than 150 offices. WHO staff are united and share commitment to achieve better health for everyone, everywhere. And any state can reach this without coordination and multilateral institution. The World Health Organization has created
Sorry, we have an interjection from speaker 1.
So you mentioned how the WHO is inclusive of all countries, but the WHO still excludes Taiwan, which has had a very successful coronavirus response, largely as a result of Chinese pressure. So how would you respond to that when defending the WHO's inclusivity?
Yes, we cannot admit that if the WHO has not the possibility of establishing sanctions or dictating rules, but it is not the fault of the WHO. The states that conform it have decided their competencies, and consequently it is their responsibility to comply with this recommendation. If they want to achieve coordinated action to manage the health crisis, they must comply with the WHO recommendation and provide the institution with truthful information about the situation they are in.
Seeing no other interjections, thank you so much, Team B, for your rebuttal, and we will now hear a rebuttal from Team D, excuse me.
Hi, everyone. The key to taking control of an emerging global health emergency is taking immediate, aggressive, precautionary measures. We believe that the World Health Organization failed to do this, mainly because the organization chose to prioritize its partnership with China over the lives of people around the world that it was intended to protect. On January 22nd, the World Health Organization declared that COVID-19 was a public health emergency of international concern, and on January 20th, they reiterated this by stating that all countries should be prepared for containment. This demonstrates that the World Health Organization clearly recognized the magnitude of the global threat that the virus posed and understood the actions that countries needed to take to prevent it from spreading. However, just 4 days later, on February 3rd, the World Health Organization changed its mind when Tedros Ghebreyesus announced that interfering with the international travel and trade was unnecessary, clearly referring to the restrictions that countries had already placed on China. Given that the World Health Organization already has trouble enforcing policies across its member countries, such a statement from its leader will only serve to greatly diminish the gravity of the situation and the urgent need for countries to take aggressive precautionary measures to stop the spread of the virus. Failure to address this situation has affected every single one of us and is the main reason why both of us, both here in the United States and across the Atlantic in Spain, are conducting this debate from our homes instead of in person. Additionally, to reflect on the World Health Organization's failure to include warnings from its member states, Taiwan reported in January 13th, actually, that they had evidence of human-to-human transmission of the virus. And the World Health Organization did acknowledge this initially. They said in a news briefing, Maria Van Kerkhove, she said that there was limited human-to-human transmission of the coronavirus.
Team B may now interject.
On that same day, they tweeted that there is no clear evidence of human-to-human transmission. And this kind of flip-flopping on evidence that clearly exists demonstrates that the World Health Organization is being pushed by external factors, I believe China, which caused them to not take this situation as seriously.
You have an interjection from speaker 3.
Yes, hello, speaker 2. So you said the WHO is influenced or even controlled fully by a foreign country, like China. But isn't China one of the least, from major countries, least voluntary contributors compared to the US and its European allies, who times 15 contribute to the WHO annual budget? I mean, how is it possible that a country that contributes so little can affect in such a huge way? Thank you.
So I think the incentive behind the World Health Organization to appease its member states is not only to continue receiving money from them, but also to continue receiving information. In this case, the World Health Organization actually sent a group of officials to China to kind of study the outbreak. And I believe that they wouldn't have been able to do so if they hadn't been appeasing China's demands to diminish the severity of the virus. I think this was another failure on the World Health Organization's part, actually, because by January 22nd, they already had information that this virus was going to cause issues around the world. It had spread to Thailand, I believe, much earlier, maybe 2 weeks earlier. And at that point, the World Health Organization should have recognized that taking action against this is much more important than continuing to try and get good information from China, because they'd already outsourced a lot of the vaccine production to Germany, a group in Germany, as well as the sequence of the virus. The DNA of the virus had already been sequenced, and there were more than enough cases in other countries to begin studies there. But yet they limited themselves to one source of information.
We have an interjection from speaker 2.
Thank you. You were talking about the masks when I have spoken, but what about the vaccines? The WHO is coordinating to find a vaccine accessible for everyone. Without its intervention, what would happen? Because without multilateral cooperation, we couldn't find a quality solution for this.
Yes, I'm sure some of my teammates can also speak to this, but access to running clean water has been something that not just the World Health Organization, but the United Nations in general has been trying to achieve for many, many years with limited process. And while I am optimistic that this pandemic will increase the importance of that goal, I believe that the World Health Organization has failed to follow through on their promise to not only provide masks, but also hand washing facilities for people around the world. Because here in the United States, where clean water access is also an issue, although not as much in many other countries, there has been limited to none support for the World Health Organization in providing hand washing facilities. And additionally, the World Health Organization has not publicized this as much as it should have. I think many people around the world are still just aware that the only way to prevent this virus spread is through wearing masks, while I don't believe that the World Health Organization has put out any statement on the importance of washing your hands.
Thank you, Team D. And with that, we will now launch into our conclusion statements. First, you will hear from Team B. You may begin.
Firstly, we would like to congratulate the other team on how well they have handled their attack on the WHO. It was a really difficult task considering the impeccable management of this organization. And they have also defended a speech full of hatred and creator of discord and inequality among people. At this point, we want to remind you all our three main arguments. Number one, knowledge is power. When we share information, we are much more efficient, and the WHO is the best platform to contrast, channel, and provide information available for everyone. Number two, the WHO is a great coordinator. It is the only entity with the capacity to manage at the international, national, and local levels health issues. At the same time, they support their health protection programs to adults and minors in situations of vulnerability. And number three, a better health for everyone, everywhere. The WHO plays currently a crucial role building a better health, a healthier future for everyone, regardless of where they live, their age, gender, nationality, race, or any other condition. We think that we should thank the coordinated action of all the heroes who have fought against COVID-19 with the help of the WHO. And thanks to this, over 4 million people all over the planet have cured. So I would like to close my speech by asking ourselves, what would the world be like without the World Health Organization in it?
Thank you, Team B. And we will now hear the concluding statement from Team D.
So we just heard the question, what would the world be like without the World Health Organization in it? And we're not advocating here that we should dismantle the World Health Organization. All we are saying is that we think that the actions that they took regarding this pandemic were not fully appropriate given the knowledge that they had and the resources that they have. So in conclusion, global and public health should not be a political issue, but the World Health Organization made it one. The over-reliance on Chinese data and information and not ever being skeptical about it, despite having knowledge in the past with the SARS outbreak that China in the past had used inaccurate data, the inability to make a consistent policy recommendation, whether it was on travel restrictions or masking or when to even declare the pandemic, led to many lives that could have been saved due to the World Health Organization's inability to act quickly and efficiently. Fundamentally, the World Health Organization exists to provide health guidance and to ultimately protect the lives of the people. And there have been over almost 500,000 deaths alone due to this virus. So I think it's hard to say that given how early the World Health Organization had the information about how this virus spreads from humans to humans and how dangerous it can be, to say that they didn't act as quickly as they could is not in the best interest of the world's people and was thus a failure on their part. When it comes to an issue like this, there's no wasting time. Like my partners had already said, within the 20 days between finding out about human-human transmission and declaring an international emergency, cases increased 300 times fold. That is just simply unacceptable. The World Health Organization had the tools they needed to make a declaration and tell the world that this was a serious problem that was going to happen, and they just simply did not do that.
Thank you so much, Team D. And with that, we have finished round 2 of our debates. Thank you so much, Team B and Team D. That was absolutely fabulous. We're going to, again, launch into our breakout room sessions. So I will see everyone when we reconvene. So we're now entering round 3, which will be Team C on the affirmative versus Team B opposing. And so now we will recognize, and again, please turn off your video if you're not on Team B or C. And first, we will be recognizing Team C for their introduction. You may begin.
Thank you to the panel of judges, organizers, audience, and the negative team for making today's educational experience and friendly spirit of debate possible. We on Team C argue that the World Health Organization's actions in response to the COVID-19 global pandemic were appropriate. The organization acted in accordance to its mission and responsibilities and was proactive and transparent in closely monitoring the situation and distributing information to the world. The WHO's mission is to promote and monitor health risks, coordinate response to emergencies, all of which it did by calling a public health emergency of international concern as soon as it had enough evidence and working alongside partner organizations to promote the distribution of essential supplies and information, fund research for vaccine and treatments, and establish a solidarity response fund to supplement their annual budget and distribute money where most needed. The World Health Organization acted appropriately within its jurisdiction to coordinate and promote health around the world, leading to over half of the coronavirus cases recovered. The WHO has done everything that it could legally and possibly can, exhausting its limited and heavily earmarked budget and donations, and creating informational pamphlets distributed around the World Wide Web. It is up to the individual nations and states to follow this guidance and implement the researched expert advice.
Thank you so much, Team C. We will now hear from Team B for their introduction.
Good morning, good afternoon, dear jurors, dear delegates of the House. My name is Gloria, and these are my partners, Saul and Marcos. We are here to discuss an issue that's been of vital importance during the last months, COVID-19. The motion of the debate today are the actions taken by the World Health Organization during the pandemic. Our position is that the actions were slow, delayed, and above all, inefficient. It is imperative that we leave the utopia in which the World Health Organization is an impartial institution that seeks the common good. The WHO has failed, and that's because it is not designed to be independent. Instead of this, it is managed, and it is subject of the whims of the nation that fund it and choose its leader. The WHO response has been hiding information from the public since the beginning. One example, first ground visits were eventually conducted to the ground zero in Wuhan on the 20th of January, where they found tens of healthcare workers infected, including the whistleblowing Dr. Li, who finally died. And this information was not publicly reported at the time. Bear in mind, the World Health Organization was created to assist countries and states to promote public health and well-being in keeping with the Sustainable Development Goals set forth by the United Nations, and not to satisfy any political or individual will. Actions speak louder than words, and the reality is that the WHO has been receiving huge amounts of money, and when we finally needed its help, has failed to react and has been subject to the partisan interests that sustain it economically. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Team B. We will now hear a rebuttal from Team C. You may begin.
Thank you so much. We stand by our opinion that the WHO has acted appropriately based on three main points. First of all, the WHO has taken extensive action against the pandemic within our jurisdiction and using the funds that we have available. Secondly, we have faced several limitations that prevent us from, for instance, forcing countries to act in a way that we find best. And third, we recognize and we take accountability for our mistakes, and we continue to adapt our response based on this. Now, you mentioned that you think that we are an impartial institution, but we completely disagree. First of all, we have been completely transparent regarding our meetings on the pandemic from the beginning. We post transcripts and statements of recommendations daily, updating our situation reports, updating blogs. We collect and compile information from experts worldwide and try to disseminate it as quickly as possible. We did warn to prepare for containment against the virus early on in response to a potential expansion worldwide. However, we wanted to avoid spreading overreactionary information, advising entire economies to close when it was unclear that the virus would spread so quickly. And it was also unclear that the virus could have asymptomatic transmission. We cannot be blamed for the uncertainty of the virus that was just simply unknown from the beginning. We also agree that China is not the most transparent partner. However, we cannot be blamed by this. We have collaborated from the beginning with Chinese health experts, and they were the only ones that were familiar with the virus from the beginning. So they should be condemned, and we agree, for misinformation. And we apologize for any confusion we may have caused by supporting China from the beginning, because we were under the impression that they were releasing impartial information. Since then, we are trying to...
You may now interject. You may continue, though.
Since then, we are trying to bust myths and only release correct information. We also have a common Mythbusters page and FAQs, frequently asked questions.
An interjection from speaker two.
Sorry, we can't hear you.
You're muted.
Thank you. You were mentioning the daily measures the WHO had taken, and also you mentioned the fact that they post daily updates, and that's a fact. But we have a bit of a discrepancy here, because how come that Director General Tedros gave a speech as late as February 26th, and where he mentions the fact, or in fact, he declared that they were not witnessing any intensive community transmission or any other large-scale event, or it wasn't spreading virus. But at the same day, more than 81,000 cases were confirmed by the same organization in 38 countries, including Taiwan, who, as we all may know, Taiwan is excluded from the WHO. Wonder why?
Thank you for that. Yes, it may be true that our Director General gave this speech, but as I mentioned before, we do take full accountability for the mistakes that we've made, and we are constantly adjusting our strategy and the information we release when it is clear to us that we have made a mistake. Unlike, and I will compare us to the Center for Disease Control, which is another leading global health organization. They have actually disappeared for 3 months before resuming briefings on the coronavirus only in June. So as opposed to backing down and realizing we've made mistakes and giving up, we have continued to fight against the pandemic, continued to push all of our funds and all of our research and expertise towards saving as many lives as possible and helping as many countries as possible. We are not afraid to change our protocols and to admit that we've made mistakes in the past.
The World Health Organization, also responding to this, has also helped the global community with crucial tracking and guidance support. For example, the World Health Organization predicted that the United States would become the new epicenter of COVID-19. And the US approach contrasts strikingly with that of Hong Kong and Taiwan and the Republic of Korea, which have prevented widespread community transmission by rapidly implementing a centralized national strategy, right? Taiwan, not a part of WHO, took precaution early, acknowledging the WHO's recognition of the threat by actually closing borders and screening travelers aggressively. Our team believes that lacking strong federal leadership to guide a uniform response, the United States quickly fulfilled the World Health Organization's prediction.
We have an interjection from speaker one.
I want to ask, how can the WHO find a solution for a global crisis such as coronavirus without the necessary competencies for this?
Can you elaborate? What do you mean without necessary
Yes,
competencies?
the WHO can make recommendations, but cannot make law or sanction anything.
Okay. I understand. This is a great point, and actually it's one of the reasons why the WHO should not be blamed for the deaths and the cases that have been spreading worldwide, because it is not in our jurisdiction to make laws. However, it is in our jurisdiction and in our power to promote health as much as we can. We also have a limited budget. Compared to the New York State Department of Health budget of over $160 billion, the WHO approved program budget is only slightly over $4 billion and is often earmarked, and it only allows us to implement programs that are pre-approved by our donors. So we cannot be solely held responsible for lack of legislation and lack of countries and individual states following our recommendations. We are trying to
have an interjection. It's a short interjection because we have barely any time, but a quick interjection from speaker two.
I would just like to mention the fact that everyone every organization has to be between a budget, can spend more money than it has. But of course, in the case of the WHO, has proven successful in with their response to SARS, where almost the virus, the SARS, in fewer than 1,000 people died, and indeed this virus is spread to over 26 countries. So, and they didn't have enough money. So my point is, how come that without this money, the WHO could do it before, but they can't do it now? Thank you.
We can have a brief response from Team C.
I'll respond quickly. So you compared this to SARS. Let's compare to Ebola, for example, a similar kind of outbreak. The WHO's most recent numbers have confirmed over 9 million confirmed cases and 490,000 deaths in 216 countries of coronavirus. Compare this to the 2014 to 2016 Ebola outbreak, for which the Centers for Disease Control in the US reports 28,000 total suspected cases and 11,000 total deaths. WHO was involved in both, but this is a new situation on a totally new and much larger scale. The World Health Organization's actions were appropriate, but it's very difficult to deal with something that you've never dealt with before.
Thank you, Team C. Now we will be hearing a rebuttal from Team B. You may begin.
We, as today's opposition, will be discussing several points, but first I do have a question. Do WHO funders drive its policy? At the start of this century, the agency received almost half of its money as dues from member states, but now that has dropped to around 20% of their annual income. This means the WHO has to become more reliant to voluntary contributions to carry out its mandate. This dependence leaves the WHO vulnerable and highly susceptible to individuals, countries, or even corporations with different agendas. This is where China comes into place. China's WHO's mandatory contributions have grown in recent years, rising by 52% since 2014 to approximately $86 million. And while this jump is likely due to China's increase in asserted contributions, Beijing has also increased voluntary contributions from 8.7 million in 2014 to an approximately 10.2 in 2019. In addition to this, China has pledged an extra $50 million to contribution to fight COVID-19. And despite the low share in the WHO's overall funding, China's rising financial contribution increase is a heft, particularly in a time when the US is seen to be giving up on international organizations and threatening to cut global health funding. China's growing economic and diplomatic clout allows Beijing to influence the political decisions and build an international network and coalitions around the world. This is especially true in the global south, an important region for the WHO, and this is why the WHO needs to be on the same page as China. Taiwan's exclusion from the WHO proves that China has unlimited power in the WHO. Moving on to another topic, as you may have seen, China's been a recurrent topic. So the WHO response arrived late, and one of the main reasons is that speaking up against China might have ended up with the international political career of its Director General Tedros, who was elected to his post with the support of China and his bloc. We're all paying the price of putting someone else's mission first instead of a global efficient response. This is again one more failed attempt to create an international community that works in a coordinated way to achieve common objectives. Events like Brexit, the rise of nationalisms throughout the world, or the crisis of the solidarity demonstrate the irrevocability of the failure of multilateral institutions. The only solidarity that exists is the one that sticks to the interests of citizens inside the same borders.
We have an interjection from speaker 2.
Thank you for your point. It's true that we are losing a lot of funds right now, which is another reason that we should not be so heavily criticized because we are trying our best and we are trying to raise funds despite how much we've lost. We're also partnering with international organizations and countries besides China, and we do sometimes have to follow our donors' advice. However, we are a team of experts, And just as an example, we've established a Solidarity Response Fund and raised over $200 million in addition to our already small budget. We've partnered with organizations such as UNICEF, the United Nations High Commissioner on Refugees, Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations for Vaccines, and the World Food Program. We are ensuring a diverse response to reach all types of individuals. And we are also partnering, for instance, with social media platforms such as WhatsApp to ensure that misinformation is not spread. So we are being very robust in ensuring that the information that we give to all of it depends on the collaboration between all of our partners. Also, we've collaborated with TikTok. So with all of our partners, in order to not just present one side or one country's mission.
So I believe it has become really clear that the WHO we knew, which lauded it for its role in the elimination of smallpox, the near eradication of polio, and the fight against diseases like HIV, malaria, or tuberculosis, to name a few, has nothing to do with the now politicized organization. One main example is that the mission-driven WHO wouldn't have tweeted as late as January 14th that, and I quote, preliminary investigations conducted by the Chinese authorities have found no clear evidence of human-to-human contact of the novel coronavirus identified in Wuhan, China. That claim was fake and also known to be fake by the authorities in Wuhan, simply because there had been a case in Thailand related with a woman from Wuhan that had never visited a seafood market a day before. So it wasn't until January 20th where a Chinese official publicly confirmed for the first time that this virus could indeed spread among humans. So moving on, and although it may seem idyllic that to act for the common good, there's always a conflict of interest between countries. The law of the strongest will always prevail, and a state can protect its citizens and safeguard their well-beings, but no international organization can fulfill this guarantee. Far from being the case, an institution like the WHO that does not have the necessary competencies to be able to compel states to comply with its recommendations and maintain transparency is a mere example of this. I would also like to give another example of a discrepancy and a major flaw. You mentioned before the fact that the WHO was trying, but I believe trying is not enough. The WHO is an international organization that many people put faith on, and we need results. People, citizens around the world need results and need to see action. So even advisors from the WHO give us the reasons. John McKenzie, the WHO's Emergency Committee advisor, said in an interview that by the time the government alerted the WHO on December 31st, scientists in China.
We have a brief introduction from speaker one, but we barely have any time, so we'll have a brief response.
Again, we would just like to reiterate that we are a health organization, not a political one. So, and that compared to the other pandemics and global diseases that you have mentioned, we live in a world today that is different than the one that we lived in back then. And again, we strive to work as much as we can with the health experts to release the most reliable information. So our main goal, one of our main goals, is to have access to this organization. It is up to the, again, we reiterate, it is up to the individual countries, nation states, and the organizations that we partner with and what they do with this organization and how they implement. Our goal is to facilitate the access to research, to resources, to coordinate responses, and to monitor and maintain public health, not to act politically upon it.
And we can have a brief response from Team B.
So I believe the WHO is no political, has to be no political organization, but at the end of the day, all diseases are new. So in the case of SARS, it also was new and no one knew how to deal with it. So indeed, the WHO has changed, and that's the fact that we want to remark and let us do with. Thank you.
Thank you, Team B. And now we will move on to our concluding statements. First, we'll be hearing from Team C. You may begin.
Thank you for the discussion today. Team C would like to note that any blunders in the beginning were a result of the inaccurate reports like those called out in popular media coming from China, as we've discussed, and Russia and other countries as well are suspected of those, and not knowing what to do more generally. You surely recognize it's a pandemic, and given this nature, the World Health Organization's response was adequate for their capacity as an organization and appropriate. Let's think for a moment. Ask yourself, who announced a name for the disease on February 11th, 2020, giving it tremendously more public visibility during a time when it had little? Who led a massive educational campaign that we've talked about and encouraged mask wearing, facilitating greater public health? The World Health Organization. Then ask yourself, have you met all of the World Health Organization's recommendations thought up by experts in the field? Do you continue to follow their recommendation of a 40 to 60 second hand washing procedure? Really think about it, right? When you last washed your hands, did you really rub your palms, palm to palm with fingers interlaced, rotational rubbing of the left, the right thumb on both palms, and then rinsing and drying with a single-use towel? The World Health Organization gave the guidance. It's been up to countries and ourselves to take it and implement these solutions. Team B said that we are all paying the price of putting someone else's mission first. Well, throwing guilt on the World Health Organization as individuals, as communities, as groups, and as nations, that's easy, but Team C believes that it is somewhat of a cop-out and a hurtful one at that, which enables countries to continue letting down their citizens. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Team C. We will now hear a concluding statement from Team B. You may begin.
Thank you. Jurors, distinguished guests, debaters, we appreciate your effort put into this debate, and we believe we've had a very fruitful one. However, we must reiterate that the response given by the WHO has been a cluster of actions that have been late, wrong, and many of them manipulated. The WHO was born during a time of hopeful internationalism that happened right after World War II. However, nowadays that idea is bankrupt. The international order the WHO relies on is fraying. Nationalisms are becoming more and more common across the globe, and each country takes care only of their citizens. No one is thinking globally, and the WHO has failed to become the global force it was meant to be. Most of the actions surrounding the WHO response are based on misleading data provided by governments that aren't always democratic. Moreover, the WHO lacks leadership in a time when medical supplies are getting seized between countries in a never-ending war, where international solidarity has left the scene. Finally, we would like you to answer this question. Was the WHO complicit with China's deception, or was it merely credulous? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Team B. And with that, we have concluded our third round of debate. Very exciting. Thank you guys so much. That was fabulous. We'll now be heading into the breakout rooms one last time before our last debate, and we will also be in breakout rooms after that for a quick discussion amongst the jurors. That being said, I will send you to your breakout rooms now, and please let me know if you have any questions. Okay, seeing none, we'll head there now. Welcome back, everyone. Really excited to start this final round of debate. And so this time around, we'll be hearing from Team D on the affirmative versus Team A on the opposition. And so we'll get started. Let's first hear from Team D for our first introduction.
All right. Thank you, jurors, guests, and fellow debaters. My name is Henry, and I'll be delivering the first speech in support of the WHO's effectiveness in coordinating the global coronavirus response. So in order to frame this debate, we first want to note that the WHO is meant as a facilitator of international cooperation, and as such, it is a product of its member states. So this is important because when we're evaluating the arguments in today's round, what we need to be looking at are the direct effects that can be attributed to the WHO, not the actions of specific governments or private actors. So with that in mind, we believe the WHO has been effective for two key reasons. First, for a laundry list of effective programs at curbing the impact of coronavirus. And second, for the importance of international organizations at coordinating international response during times of crisis. So first of all, looking at the extensive list of programs that the WHO has supported, you can see a clear beneficial impact from everything from the Solidarity Response Fund, which has raised more than $200 million in order to support COVID response, to the shipment of personal protective equipment to more than 135 countries, to the supply of more than 1 million testing kits sent to 129 countries, to its publication of the Strategic Preparedness and Response Plan, which was set forth as early as February 3rd, giving countries adequate time to prepare and implement the policies and programs necessary in order to decrease their risk of COVID-19, and even a virtual concert organized at the onset of quarantine in many countries in order to help alleviate feelings of social isolation. There's a clear role that the WHO specifically has played in mitigating the worst effects of the COVID pandemic. Now, looking more broadly at the importance of international organizations during these times, I'd like to mention first a quote by the Director General of the WHO, who said that at this moment, the United States and China, but obviously many more countries, should be adopting the same approach that the US and Soviet Union took in 1967 when they launched a global campaign to eradicate smallpox worldwide. This is exactly the sort of spirit that the WHO strives to cultivate, one of cooperation between countries on incredibly difficult issues. And what we can see now is with the isolation and sort of closing off that many countries are embarking on, the role of international organizations is even more important. The ability of the WHO to, as mentioned before, coordinate shipments of protective equipment to countries throughout the world should not be understated, and its importance as a facilitator is magnified, especially during this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Team D. We will now be hearing an introduction from Team A. You may begin.
Good afternoon. This time, Team A will defend the position against actions taken by the World Health Organization in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, World Health Organization is the leading coordinating authority for international health effort. It can provide governments with everything from technical assistance to medical care and emergency assistance shipments in times of crisis. In its history, the organization has developed and maintained important programs, but it's known for its campaigns for epidemic eradication, prevention, and control, including the current COVID-19 pandemic. The big question is whether the World Health Organization has acted in time in the COVID-19 crisis. From the time the government of Beijing informed World Health Organization of the first cases until the United Nations agency declared the pandemic, it passed a long time lapse. The pandemic has left many infected and deceased. Today, 9.7 million cases of transmission are known and 495,000 deceased. That said, if contingency measures had been taken earlier, the potential expansion of the virus would have been reduced by 75%. And if the measures had been put in a place a week earlier, the death and the contagion numbers would have fallen by 62%. Having said that, we believe that it's difficult to defend World Health Organization action.
Thank you so much, Team A. We will now hear a rebuttal from Team D. You may begin.
Hi, everyone. So it is of the utmost importance that we treat the pandemic as a truly global issue that affects every country, and that is exactly what the World Health Organization is doing. The problem, however, is that The issue that has allowed the virus to spread so rapidly and across so many countries in the world is because of uncooperative leaders who refuse to recognize the severity of the issue. For example, in the United States, we have Donald Trump, who eliminated the United States Pandemic Response Task Force immediately before the virus started, leaving them completely unprepared, pushed an untested treatment warned against by his own health committee, and also held campaign rallies in cities that were known to be coronavirus hotspots. We have Boris Johnson, who did not take the virus seriously until he actually got the virus and had to be on a ventilator in order to survive. We have Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil, who insisted that the virus was just a little flu and stated verbatim that Brazilians were immune to the virus because they swam in sewers. Brazil now has more than 1 million cases and is ready to overtake the United States in case count. And then we have Madagascar, where the president Andy Rajoelina touted a organic herbal remedy for coronavirus called COVID Organics and drank a bottle in front of everyone during an election speech. It is not the World Health Organization's job, nor are we able to address despots, bigots, and uneducated leaders who are causing problems in their own countries. Instead, our goal is to provide resources to countries that are willing to take on the fight against this virus and willing to recognize the risk that it poses. And to that end, we've created the COVID-19 Solidarity Fund. A lot of things
Team may now interject. Continue.
A lot of things mentioned by my colleague Henry, with the goal of raising $675 million to aid countries in the fight.
We have an interjection from speaker 2.
Hi, hello, thank you. I would like to come back to what you have said about being the fault of countries and presidents who didn't take proper actions to handle coronavirus. But how about countries who have put themselves on lockdown for about 3 months, like Spain, Italy, have been on lockdown for 3 months and even more, and who are taking serious decisions to fight coronavirus, but yet have atrocious numbers? And that is because not the actions that they took the actions that they needed, but they are very touristic countries. And if the World Health Organization had taken the decision of control travels and inform and communicate properly about the virus and the transmissions and the problem that it is, maybe those countries that are very touristic wouldn't have had those awful numbers. I think it goes further than, there might be some presidents that didn't take the correct decisions, but there are some that took and yet have horrible numbers. Thank you.
Exactly, that's a really good point. The World Health Organization cannot tell Spain, France, or Italy to shut down its borders to travelers. That is a responsibility that those countries may have needed to have taken by themselves. And countries that did follow those actions, such as Korea and Taiwan, that are just as significant tourist destinations and much closer to early COVID hotspots, such as China, have been able to close their borders and significantly reduce cases by following the advice that was outlined by the World Health Organization. The issue of numbers rising in other countries, such as the United States or Spain, for example, lies in the inability of the World Health Organization to actually tell these countries what they are doing, which is why this is a time that actually reflects that the World Health Organization needs to be given more powers so that it can actually fulfill its duties. And the organization has done the best that it can, given the limitations of not being able to impose on countries' own sovereignty.
Thank you. Do we have any more interjections from Team A? Okay, seeing none, we will now move on to the rebuttal from Team A. You may begin now.
Hello, good afternoon. respected judges, my worthy opponents, faculty members, and audience, I, Guillermo, hereby humbly express my gratitude for the opportunity to participate in this debate. As previously stated my teammate, I am hereby standing against the motion, and if I have your permission, I would like to begin by saying that the WHO makes mistakes and doesn't learn, okay? In every major global epidemic, the World Health Organization has been criticized. There have been 5 most recent viral threats, and it seems that these have not been enough for the World Health Organization to learn and to prepare an effective action plan. For example, in 2009, during the H1N1 pandemic, some symptoms of the H1N1 were also pneumonia, okay? According to the US Department of Health Center for Disease Control and Prevention, there were 60.8 million cases, more than 200,000 hospitalizations, and more than 12,000 deaths. Years later, as you will know, in 2014 and 2019, the World Health Organization was criticized for its slowness in managing Ebola, who declared the emergency in 2014, okay? The outbreak originated on December 2013. It resulted in 28,000 infections, 11,000 deaths, and in June 2009, there were 2,000 cases with around 1,500 deaths, according to the official World Health Organization website, okay? So the WHO should not have made these mistakes, but from the appearance of the first cases of pneumonia of unknown origin in the town of Wuhan on December 31st, until the declaration of the emergency on January 30th, a month went by. But what's more, until the pandemic was declared on 11th of March, the days continued to pass without a response from the world reference in health matters, while the virus had already spread worldwide, causing the considerable multiplication of human losses that sadly we all know. We can observe all these statements, okay, and dates on the World Health Organization official timeline, okay, on COVID-19 on its website. The lack of investments, this is another argument, okay, the lack of investment in preventive medicine and the lack of unified action models for the coronavirus issued by the World Health Organization has highlighted the importance of public and private synergies to the detriment of the decisive role that the WHO has expected to take but was unable to carry out. For example, UNICEF has had to expand its humanitarian action due to COVID-19 in 155 countries, thanks to $600 million received from contributions from donations.
We have an interjection from speaker 1.
Okay.
So you mentioned how the importance of public-private sector cooperation, but what about international cooperation? So the WHO has been effective in coordinating sort of international aid efforts, as we mentioned, to 135 countries. Isn't that equally as important in a global pandemic?
Well, what is really important in this aspect, apart from the coordination and the organization from the different governments, what is decisive in these cases of pandemics is money. Is money to buy, is money to make, and is money to give, okay? Because the big majority of the contribution from donations rely on the support from the private sector as a core source of income, okay? While the World Health Organization only has a budget of $500 million, approximately according to the proposed program budget in the health emergencies. It's decisively to have a really good budget on these health emergencies. So, of course, is important to have the issue or the volunteer, so to be volunteer to help all the government. But what is decisive is the money to make all those efforts. So as some colleagues told before, it is undeniable that the World Health Organization has made mistakes. Okay, we all know they have made mistakes, and that's true. Okay, they that have caused terrible consequences.
We
An
have
example of
from
this.
speaker 2.
Yes.
Hi. So, what is your response to the fact that much of the criticism of the World Health Organization being too political or allying with China has actually come from officials that have strong political agendas against China, who have historically made policies against China, trade restrictions, travel restrictions, you name it. Without the World Health Organization, the World Health Organization made a choice to cooperate with China because China is where the virus started. China had the first response to the virus, and China had the first research to the virus. And yet people are still criticizing the World Health Organization of being too political, while the point of these criticisms is to advance their own political agendas. What is your take on that?
I will answer this question if it's possible for my colleague. We're not saying that it should not have worked with China, and it's obvious that the countries and the representatives who are going to critique the alliance of the WHO with China are those who have a story of maybe not having a very cooperation relationships. But what we are saying is that the WHO, the World Health Organization, was unable to critique the decisions made by China that were incorrect. They've been decisions and they've been things and numbers that were given that were not correct. And the World Health Organization, instead of critiquing and instead of coming forward and saying they've made a mistake and acknowledging that, they decided to ally with them constantly. It is needed. It's obvious that it was a necessity because it's a pandemic. However, cooperation also can imply being critical of the country you are working with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Team A. And therefore, we will now move into our concluding statements. First, we'll be hearing from Team D. You may begin.
Talked about with cooperation comes the need to be critical. And I understand that to an extent, but it's really hard to be critical of a country where this pandemic originated, that has all the information, has all the data accessible to you about how to contain this outbreak. They're the ones that have the genome sequencing, the case records. Whether they may be fully accurate is a whole nother question, but you have to put your faith in the country where the pandemic originated. Otherwise, it's possible that China could have just cut off the World Health Organization, said, we don't want you to have our information, we don't want you to help with this. So ultimately, the World Health Organization exists as a sum of its parts, its member states. And my opponents talked again and again about how the World Health Organization has made mistakes from them and doesn't learn. So maybe this is an issue not with the World Health Organization, but with how the World Health Organization is comprised and the lack of power they really have. So essentially, there needs to be a change in governance. And this is something that's been mentioned over and over again after a pandemic, saying, oh, maybe the World Health Organization needs more power in this case, but nothing has happened. But that's not the fault of the World Health Organization. How can it change itself when it's the sum of so many member states who all have disagreeing philosophies on things and all want their seat at the table to influence world health policy? And in hindsight, we can talk about how the World Health Organization was not forthcoming of information and it led to X, Y, and Z. But we also have to think about it in the context of where the World Health Organization was in January. Given the information that they had, they believed they were making the correct decision. And they have come out and said, we apologize and you should hold us accountable for doing this. And I think that's understandable. But given the information that they had at the time, the World Health Organization made all the decisions they could and ultimately put the lives of people as a priority. They've issued so many resources, as my colleagues have said, like the concert that raised $55 million for the Solidarity Fund. There have been countless infographics on importance of hand washing, how to address coronavirus symptoms, and they've done all that's possible in this case.
Thank you so much, Team D. And finally, we'll be hearing the concluding statement from Team A. You may begin.
Sorry. Okay, so as I've said before, the World Health Organization has made mistakes. Okay, they have caused terrible consequences. An example of this, of the initial delays detecting the virus, has implicitly admitted this error by agreeing to an external audit, okay, for the pandemic. It was said by Tedros Adhanom, its president. So the proposal was led by some European countries, but not including China or the United States, who are some two countries that have been really named on this debate. So I want to say something about the information given from the World Health Organization, but we have not enough time to discuss it. But if you want to find, try to enter the Lancet Lancet magazine, where the WHO stated some false information from a Gilead science company in the United States, who made some studies, some clinical studies on Wuhan, on the first cases, with a treatment called Remdesivir. This treatment is now has the okay in the European Union to be treated patients, and the WHO said this treatment was absolutely inefficient. So in conclusion, its works as an international body of global reference in health is being questioned, obviously, and it has shown that after numerous health crises in the recent years, it has not been able to rise to the occasion when it was most needed. So is there a need for the World Health Organization figuring health matters at the international level nowadays? Maybe we not need a World Health Organization as we know now, okay? But what it is clear is what we do not need a World Health Organization that makes mistakes and does not learn. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Team A. And with that, we have concluded our round 4 of debate. Congratulations, everyone. That was absolutely fabulous. Okay. I'm so impressed with all of the incredible arguments that were shared. Right now, we're going to go back to our breakout rooms one more time, because we're going to be doing some calculations to make an important announcement when we reconvene. And so if you guys don't want to just talk to your teams, feel free to return to the main session, and or even just stay here, not go to the breakout rooms, to get to know your fellow competitors. Thank you guys so much for participating, and I'll see you soon when we come back for our closing ceremonies. Welcome back. Sorry for the wait. Before we begin our closing ceremonies, I had the great suggestion of if you want to be in this picture, like we're pretending that we're like in person, you can be. If not, then you can just turn off your camera, and I'm going to take a screenshot of one that is here right now. So yeah, we can pretend that we're in person. So yeah, everyone, smile. Okay, great. And so now we'll start our closing ceremonies. First, I want to reiterate like a huge thank you to everyone that is participating. This is huge. It was a great, incredible time. Really stuck through with all of our rounds, and everyone did a great job. Everyone was so committed. Also to our 3 jurors, like I cannot thank you enough. Carolyn, Maria, and Bayan, they did a fabulous job. And also to Professor Asensio, who she's awesome. Like we've been planning this for a really long time, and she's just done an incredible job. Also to Henry, who was originally the person planning the one in person. I took over, so now I'm kind of like moderating this one, but he was in all of our meetings, and we're working really hard to plan this. And then of course, to all of our professors that have helped us from Valencia. It's been like an incredible experience, and it's so nice meeting all of you. So thank you. Okay, so now we're gonna go into our recognitions. I'm really excited to first, I'm gonna announce our top 3 speakers, and then we're gonna go into our top team. And I'll be sending everyone individually the feedback that you got from the jurors, just so that you can obviously reflect, and you'll also know your scores. And just so you know, this was super close. Everyone did incredibly, and everyone had super high scores. So doing the calculations, I had to make sure to look over them 3 or 4 times because it was so close. So here we go. Okay, So for our top 3 speakers, we have tied for 3rd place. Team A, speaker 2, Candela. Congratulations. And then we have, nice. We have also tied for 3rd place. We have Team B, speaker 2, Gloria. Congratulations. Awesome. Okay, in 2nd place, we have Team D, speaker 2, David. Congrats. And finally, in 1st place, huge congratulations to Team B, speaker 1, Saul. Awesome. That was incredible. Wow. You guys did so great, and so did everyone. Like I said, scores were so close, and I can't wait to send all of you your feedback. And here we go. For the top team, a huge congratulations to Team B, Saul, Gloria, and Marcos. Yay. Congrats, guys. It was absolutely fabulous. I was so impressed with all the incredible arguments shared today, and I loved hearing everyone take both sides of this really interesting question. So thank you so much for all of your hard work. That is all from me.
Thank you, Emily. I think it was a lot of fun, and I hope you continue in the fall, all of you. I hope to see you all in the fall, where we will have we will switch languages. We will have the panel discussion in English and the debate in Spanish. So this was practice for the fall. Hope to see you all. Thank you. And I only missed giving you a handshake like I would if we were in person as we did last year, but hopefully soon we will have that yes, opportunity, okay?
Yes. Quickly, I'm
well.
going to share the picture in the chat now for anyone who wants it right now, and then we can.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily.
It's been so nice meeting everyone, and thank you again for all of your hard work. Okay, there you go.
Yes.
Hey, Emily, I was just wondering, is there a way that you could maybe like email all of us so that we could, I don't know, stay in touch and then.
Yes, of course.
Yes, good idea.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, good idea, because the purpose of this is also to connect people, you know, connect the Spanish students with Yale students. So
okay,
that's
awesome.
a great idea.
Yeah, I will send out an email including everyone's email. If you don't want that for some reason and you don't want your email to be included, I'll stay on here a minute and you can just send me a message and I'll make sure that your email isn't included in the list. Yeah.
And before we go, just one virtual round of applause for Emily for running an absolutely flawless virtual debate. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. That's so kind.
Thank you. So enjoy your weekend. Hope to see you all in the fall. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Henry.
Of course.
Thank you, Caroline, Maria, Bayan. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Very proud of all of you. Thanks for your work and thanks for your passion.